Write an equation of the line that passes through the points represented by the given table. You can use point-slope form. We need to find the slope. The way that we do that is y2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1. If you take 2 and you subtract -2, remember that changes it to adding the opposite, which would be 4. It's the change in y divided by the change in x. So our slope is 2/4 or 1/2, and that goes in the IMS position of the point slope form. So we have y minus, and then we're going to pick a y value. Our slope is 1/2, and then subtract the x value that goes with it. You can do the same type of thing for problem 1. Number 1, use the clues to determine each person's favorite color and favorite animal. No two people have the same favorite color or the same favorite animal. You can use the table to help organize your thoughts. The first clue says Henry's favorite color is yellow and his favorite animal is an alligator. So that means that no one else can have yellow or the alligator. Number 2, Ava's favorite color is green. So no one else can have green because no two people have the same. And it says, and she does not like dogs. So we're going to cross off dog for Ava. Clue 3, Lily does not like red. So cross off red for Lily. And does not like cats. Clue 4, the person whose favorite color is red has a favorite animal that is a horse. Well, we know that Ava's favorite color is green, so her favorite animal is not a horse, because it has to be red with a horse. We know that Lily does not like red, so she also does not like the horse. So the only person who can like red and the horse is Vic. We had Henry's was yellow and an alligator. The only option left for Lily is blue with the dog. So that must mean that Ava likes green with the cat. Mr. Adams, Mrs. Banks, Mrs. Condo, and Mr. Jacobs each have one of the following jobs: carpenter, electrician, painter, or plumber. Each person charges a different hourly rate and a different one-time fee. Use the clues to determine each person's job, hourly rate, and one-time fee. Clue 1 says, neither Mr. Adams nor Mr. Jacobs is an electrician. So Mr. Adams and Mr. Jacobs. Clue 2 says Mr. Adams charges an hourly rate of $20. Oh, that's Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Adams. He charges a total of $75 for 3 hours of work, which includes the one-time fee. Well, if he charges $20 an hour for 3 hours, that would be $60. Plus his fee gave him a total of $75 for the 3 hours. If we solve that for F, the fee, that would be $15. So Mr. Adams has a one-time fee of $15. Clue 3 says, Mr. Kondo charges an hourly rate of $24. Mrs. Kondo. So we know if Mr. Adams is the one who charges $20 an hour, nobody else can charge that rate. If Mrs. Kondo charges $24 an hour, no one else charges that rate. And if Mr. Adams charges the one-time fee, no one else can use that $15 fee. Clue 4, the electrician charges a $25 hourly rate and no one-time fee. Well, the electrician could be Mrs. Banks or Mrs. Kondo. But if they charge a $25 hourly rate, it can't be Mrs. Kondo. So that would mean Mrs. Banks is the electrician, and the electrician charges an hourly rate of $25 and no one-time fee. Clue 5. The carpenter charges an hourly rate of $21 an hour and a one-time fee of $25. Well, Mrs. Banks charges $25 an hour. Mr. Adams, we don't have an hourly rate yet. Mrs. Kondo is $24 an hour, and Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Adams charges $20 an hour. So that would mean Mr. Jacobs has to be the $21 an hour, which is the carpenter. And he has a one-time fee of $25. Clue 6 says the plumber charges a total of $68 for 2 hours of work and $116 for 4 hours of work. These total charges include a one-time fee. So the plumber has $116 for 4 hours and $68 for 2. That would be a rate or a slope in this case. If we subtract, we get 48 over 2, which is a rate of 24. So the plumber has to charge a rate of 24. Well, that was Mrs. Kondo, so she is the plumber. And if they charge $24 an hour for 2 hours, plus the fee, gave them a total of $68. That was 48. So we would subtract 48 from both sides. And that leaves us with a fee of 20 for the plumber. That means the carpenter's taken, the electrician's taken, the plumber's taken, So Mr. Adams has to be the painter. Make sure that you have all this written down because we're going to reference it when we go to finish the equations and the rest of the information based on these people. So here it asks us to write an equation. It says complete the table by writing the job and the equation that models the total amount charged in dollars for X hours of work for each person. So for Mr. Adams, his job was the painter. And his equation for his amount of money earned, he charged $20 per hour and a $15 fee. Mrs. Banks was an electrician. And Mrs. Banks charged a $25 an hour fee, or a $25 an hour rate with no fee. Mrs. Kondo was a plumber, and she charged $24 an hour and a one-time fee of $20. Mr. Jacobs was a carpenter. He charged $21 an hour and a $25 fee. So our rate in this case is our slope, and then our fee is our y-intercept or our initial value. How much money does Mr. Adams charge for 8 hours of work? So we're going to put 8 in the x position and solve it for y. Swap out the x there. 20 times 8 plus 15 would give us a total of $175 for 8 hours of work. How many hours does the carpenter work if he charges a total of 340? That 340 is going to go into the y position because that's the amount he earns. And then we'll need to solve it for x. So we'll subtract 25 from both sides. Then divide both sides by 21 to solve it for x. 315 divided by 21 is 15. So that means he would have to work for 15 hours. Which person charges $140 for 5 hours of work? We had 4 different equations. And if we plug in 5 into the x position to each of these equations, we can figure out which one charges 140. So we're replacing these with 5. 20 times 5 is 100, plus 15 would be 115. So we know that it's not the first person, Mr. Adams. 25 times 5 is 125, so it's not Mrs. Banks. $24 times 5 is 120, plus 20 would be 140. So it is the third person, which is Mrs. Kondo. For the how do you know piece, showing your work can work for me. You might also write a sentence saying something about how when you substituted 5 into the x value, you were able to determine which person charged $140. Then it says on which line is the point 6, 150, and what does the point represent in the context? So if we replaced those with 6 instead of 5, let's see, we would have 20 times 6 is 120, plus 15 is 135. 25 times 6 is 150. So that appears on the line for, is that Mrs. Banks? Yes, Mrs. Banks. And it says, what does it mean in this context? It means that Mrs. Banks charges $150 for 6 hours of work. Who charges the most money for 10 hours of work? If we replace x with 10 in each of these equations, we can figure out who charges the most. 20 times 10 is 200, plus 15 is 215. 25 times 10 is 250. 24 times 10 is 240. And 240 plus 20 would be 260. And then our last equation, we had 21 times 10 is 210. 210 plus 25 is 235. So Mrs. Kondo charges the most for 10 hours of work. She charges $260 for 10 hours of work. That is the end of lesson 27. Check back on my YouTube channel for more.